to part 3, and this is part 3 in our series on playing over changes, that is to say series 2. Now, with this particular set of videos, we're using a sequence which is, well, it's a number of songs really. It could be Dock of the Bay, it could be Rock and Roll Suicide by David Bowie, it could be Lessons in Love by Level 42, it could be a lot of things. But I think arguably style-wise, the one which is easiest to picture in your mind is probably Dock of the Bay, because it's got that slightly bluesy thing going on and it allows us a little bit of license. Now, so far we've looked at changing from G to B7, and we've looked at changing from G to B7 in a couple of different positions. Okay, now if we've been playing, I don't want to state the obvious here, but it's always better to mention something and not to assume everyone's already realised it. So okay, here's a little thought for you. If we can do this, this, there must be something in between, mustn't there? Yeah? Okay. So if you're reasonably comfortable with your major pentatonics, this is a good time to think about using that major pentatonic to get you from one position to another. So arguably to get you from G here to B7 here. Not too difficult to do. Okay, I'll just play that again. Easy that is to do. But you do need to know where you're going to finish up. Anyway, okay, so we've got ourselves from G to B7, and hopefully we're fairly comfortable with doing that, thinking up different ways of doing it all the time. Another good thing to do is, I know it sounds very obvious, but don't start in the same place. Put yourself somewhere else on the neck that you don't normally start, and then that forces you to find your way around. Now, again, another really important piece of advice is don't be afraid to make mistakes. You're always going to learn something. You know, that's probably one of the biggest obstacles in the way of most musicians, is a fear of making mistakes. Don't worry about it. Doesn't matter. No one's going to come and arrest you unless it's really bad. So, you know, but what you're going to do is you're going to find stuff. So when you go looking for a phrase, you don't play what you heard in your head, then you have to find it. I had a great discussion with a guy. It was many, many years ago, and I was playing a duo gig in a pub. And I'd been playing cricket that day as well. I was absolutely starving hungry by the time we'd finished playing that night. And we'd noticed there was a kebab shop across the road. Now, a young lad walked up to me and he said, "Oh, you know, I really like your guitar playing. It's amazing, blah, blah, blah." And I was literally, you know, 1 foot out of the door with my amp in my hand, and I can smell a lamb shish kebab. I'm thinking, please don't close before I get there. But equally, you know, anybody who's played any amount of gigs will know that audiences aren't always the most friendly of things. And when someone does compliment what you do, it's not only very heartwarming and nice, but it's also the height of rudeness not to acknowledge that. So there I am, shish kebab in one nostril, him in the ear, and I'm thinking, right, so he said, "How do you get to play like that?" Now, I thought I need to sum this up in one sentence really. So what I said to him was, I said, what you need to do is you need to learn how to play everything you can hear in your head. If you can't play what you can hear in your head, you need to practice until you can. And that is probably the best and shortest summary I've ever made about how to improve as a player. So don't be afraid of making mistakes. But do try and hear what you're doing. Don't just be playing patterns, you know, that you've played for so long you've almost forgotten to think when you're playing. You don't want to be doing that. You want to be creating every time you play. Anyway, enough of all that stuff. Now, you may be wondering, have I left enough time for the new bit of this video? Well, in a lot of ways, this new bit's actually very, very simple. The next chord in the sequence, we've had G, let's say G7, we've had B7, and now we've got C. have to be C, it could be C7. I think when you're playing this sort of song, sometimes you have to decide, you know, if there was an extension on the chord, in other words, if it had a seventh in it, what would it be? Because then we know what sort of stuff to play over it. And I think if I can make it fairly obvious actually, suppose I played it like this. It's not really the right sound, is it? Okay, so C7th. Now, that's rather handy for us because that's sitting one fret above where we've just been playing, isn't it? Whether we've been playing here or whether we've been playing here. Okay, so this should be a very easy transition from one chord to the next. C7 from B7. It's one fret away. Okay, now if there was, you know, a trap to fall into or a banana skin to trip over with this, it's thinking that there's not much you can do with this. There's always loads you can do with these changes. And because it's easy, you don't want to be having a sort of an artistic day off just because it's easy. You want to still make it interesting and colourful. So playing from B7 to C7 is our next stage. And I think it's fair to say wherever you've got a B7, a C7 is not going to be very far away. So that's it for this particular episode. We'll be looking at a further change in the next section. Keep at it, and if you could press the subscribe button, that would be great, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye for now.